Hey everybody, it's me, Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie. On this episode of CD Junkie, I am going to be talking about KID CREOLE and the Coconuts. They're known as an 80s band. They're much more popular in Europe, although they were from America. And such a wonderful... In fact, I usually like to start these episodes off by telling you how I got into them. But no, I'm actually going to tell you how they made me more aware of things. Because KID CREOLE and the Coconuts... they took funk and salsa and swing and jazz and all this music and combined it into something both commercial and fun and joyous. You know, every time I bought a KID CREOLE album back in the day, it was always a cause for celebration. It was like a party. And it actually introduced me to a lot more world music sounds out there. You know, sure, I grew up and I knew what salsa was and, you know, swing and all this stuff. And, you know, basically because my parents or grandparents would listen to a lot of stuff like that. But to put it in a pop music context and make it sound original, you know, a song like Stool Pigeon, it's got this really cool funky guitar, but then it goes into this swing horn section, and just to hear that is just amazing. So it gave me more appreciation for music from other countries. So, you know, of course, then I would pursue other things and listen to other bands that maybe had influenced KID CREOLE and the Coconuts. And that's always great when a band is able to do that, is be able to open up your mind and bring other styles of music into your life. And that was all happening in the early 80s. So let's start with the KID CREOLE CD catalog right here, only focusing on studio albums. But you can't talk about KID CREOLE without talking about Dr. Buzzard's original Savannah band. This was the band started by Stoney Browder and his brother Thomas Browder. Well, Thomas Browder is better known as August Darnell, who is better known as KID CREOLE. Really, the roots of the KID CREOLE sound is here. You know, you had August Darnell, and you also had sugar-coated Andy Hernandez, who was a great asset to the band, vibraphone, percussion, and, you know, a great foil on stage. This CD contains their first two albums. The self-titled came out in 1976, and Meet King Pennant came out in 1978. So that is their first two albums. There is a third album that came out in 79 that is available on CD, but it's way too expensive. It's in the hundreds of dollars, so I can't afford that. And in the 80s, Stoney did revive the band for one more album in 1984, and that's never come out on CD. So let's talk about KID CREOLE and the Coconuts. The first album is Off the Coast of Me, a wonderful blend of pop and funk and soul and swing and salsa. It's really an eye-opener, and it's very fun too. This album has songs like Mr. Softy and Melody d'Amour, Yolanda, Off the Coast of Me. This is the one with bonus tracks there. A really wonderful debut that I, you know, retroactively heard because I didn't get into the band until the next album, which is called Fresh Fruit in Foreign Places, and that came out in 1981. This is the British version that contains some bonus material, but songs on this is like Going Places, In the Jungle, Animal Crackers, Latin Music, Table Manners, and my personal favorite on this album is a song called Dear Addie. Now, the import version has a different mix of Dear Addie that has like a little spoken word thing that goes over the top of the musical intro. But if you were to get the American version, which was released on Wounded Bird, then that doesn't have that intro, and it has the mix that I've loved for 40 years. Really wonderful. This, again, it's just bringing in all styles of music and creating something fun, unique. Now, this album was remastered very recently and put out on the Rain Man label, and that will probably be a little bit easier to get. No bonus tracks on either the Wounded Bird version or this version, but these sound wonderful. In 1982, they put out the album Tropical Gangsters, which was a breakthrough album for them in the UK. Absolutely wonderful. This is the album with I'm a Wonderful Thing, Baby, Annie, I'm Not Your Daddy, Stool Pigeon, and it brings the melodies up to the fore. It's filled with a lot more hooks than the previous album, although the previous album was great as well. But this is just chock full of great stuff. This is the UK version, and it has bonus tracks. Now, some of you American fans are going, Tropical Gangsters, what's that? Well, Tropical Gangsters was retitled Wise Guys in the US and had a different album cover. And this is the remaster of that. and it has the same exact tracks, no bonus tracks, but the same exact tracks. If you want a Kid Creole album and you haven't tried them, apart from a best of, Wise Guy is the album to get, or Tropical Gangsters, depends on what you find on. Fantastic album. They followed that up with another fine album called Doppelganger. And this is definitely a party and a half. First off, it's got a great cover. Second off, it's filled with great songs such as Lifeboat Party and If You Want to Be Happy and Distractions and There's Something Wrong in Paradise, It's a Wonderful Life, and Back in the Field Again is wonderful as well. This is a great collection. This is the UK version that has bonus tracks. You can also get the version that came out on Rain Man, and that's it right there. That is remastered, but it doesn't have bonus tracks. But that's easily obtainable. Now, the next thing they did is they had a song featured on the soundtrack to Against All Odds. And I haven't seen the movie, but they may have actually lip-synced the song in the movie or appeared in the movie at some point. So that's a song that a lot of people are going to be familiar with. But that was not on any Kid Creole album. The next Kid Creole album was In Praise of Older Women and Other Crimes. That came out in 1985. Now, this was a transition that sort of started on Doppelganger. Now, every album before this had been a full band. It sounded like they were recording a full band in the studio. Real bass, real drums, horn section, all that kind of stuff. Well, on Doppelganger, there were some songs that you could tell that, well, it wasn't a full band or it was a drum machine, things like that. This sort of transitioned into that area too. It was obviously very expensive to record with all that stuff. So it sounded like they were sort of paring things down in the studio. There were still full band sounding recordings on this, such as Endicott. But then when you hear something like Darling, You Can Take Me, it sounds like that was programmed mostly on keyboards. But still, it doesn't take away from the fun. It just takes away from the heavier bottom end of the recordings. But still, wonderful collection of songs. As I mentioned before, Endicott, Darling, You Can Take Me. Carolyn Was a Dropout is another big song. He Can Have You, and some other fine tracks. That is the Wounded Bird version. This is the Rain Man remaster. And same tracks as the Wounded Bird version. Now, next up, in 1987, they released the album I Too Have Seen the Woods. This, again, was moving away from the earlier sound, was not as fantastic as the previous albums. And although it's not a bad album, there's fewer high points on the album. And I have to admit that, even a mediocre Kid Creole and the Coconuts album is a lot better than some bands' best albums. So I Too Have Seen the Woods. Buttermilk Channel is just a wonderful instrumental that opens the album. Part of My Design, Agony, Ecstasy, Consider Me, other favorites on that album. Now here's the thing. Sugar-Coated Andy Hernandez, he was going under the name Cody Mundy on these albums. And he seemed to be sort of the maybe musical sparring partner per se, or a musical cohort to August Darnell. And he was such an important part of the band, either visually or on record. He was his foil at times. He was his partner at times. But he left the band after that album. And although the band members were always changing, I think the loss of Cody Mundy, Sugar-Coated Andy Hernandez, it sort of took the wind out of the sails of the group. And it was obvious that something key was missing, although August Darnell, incredible, amazing artist. This is not to say that any of the stuff is bad. This is just to say you can tell there was sort of a change in the balance of power, so to speak. The thing about Kid Creole and the Coconuts, too, is there was a lot of turnover in the band. So people like Bongo Eddie, Peter Schott, they were there a lot of the times. Adriana Kagi, who was one of the Coconuts, she was there through most of this period as well. But things started to change with the next album. Now, here's a 2 CD set that contains 2 albums. This contains the next album, which is called Private Waters and the Great Divide. Now, there's a song on here called The Sex of It that was written by Prince. Now, Prince at this time had essentially changed R&B music. A lot of people will not agree with that, but he he leveled the playing field, and then everyone that sprung in his wake started to do things that were kind of like Prince. And that's no different for Kid Creole and the Coconuts. Prince wrote the song The Sex of It for Private Waters and the Great Divide, and it sounds very much like a Prince song performed by Kid Creole and the Coconuts. They do maintain their own personality enough to get through that, but a lot of the rest of the album sounds heavily influenced by this new R&B scene. They're moving away from like the world music and the sambas and the funk, and they're getting into more of like a 90s R&B groove, which was obviously very popular at the time. So Private Waters and the Great Divide, Is it one of my favorites? No, but it does have I Love Girls, No More Casual Sex, The Sex of It, and some other really fine songs. The CD also contains their next album, which is called You Should Have Told Me You Were from 1991. So this is a double disc that contains both those albums. I mean, these are not the perfect gateway into the world of Kid Creole and the Coconuts, but they're fine albums nonetheless. So if you find them on CD or vinyl out there, definitely pick them up. Now, here's a weird one. This is very strange, but it does belong in the Kid Creole and the Coconuts catalog. This is a Japanese-only CD, and it is called KC2 Plays K2C. And it came out in 1993. And what this was is a group of musicians got together and they wrote a bunch of songs that were inspired by Kid Creole, that were supposed to sound like Kid Creole. And they thought, well, let's get August Darnell in to sing them. I believe he wrote the lyrics for all the songs, sang them. And then there's female backing vocalist, which I'm assuming is the Coconuts. And it actually ends up sounding like a better Kid Creole and the Coconuts album than the previous two. And that's it there. Like I said, it's Japanese only. It's very 1993 R&B, but it has a lot of great hooks. And August Darnell of Kid Creole actually sounds really great. He always sounds great no matter what. So much conviction, so much love for what he's doing, so much energy. The next Kid Creole and the Coconuts album is called To Travel Sideways. You know, there's like some, 90s R&B beats, some hip-hop beats, not hip-hop music, but, the same kind of rhythms and beats. And the songs are not as catchy, but they're still Kid Creole songs. And it's wonderful to hear him moving things forward. Thing is a lot of people could have got into Kid Creole and the Coconuts at this time and look back at the old stuff and say, ooh, PU. And I'm certainly not saying that about anything about this period. It's just not the Kid Creole of old, but it's still fun to listen to. Every album has gems on it, including To Travel Sideways. That came out in 1995. Next up is the second album that came out in 1995, travels the same path, and that's called Kiss Me Before the Light Changes. And in fact, the title track is absolutely fantastic. But there's other songs like Haiti and But I Got You. And again, a fine collection of songs. And at that time, very modern Kid Creole moving forward into the future. And Kid Creole up in front, you cannot ask for a better thing than that. The next album is called The Conquest of You. That came out in 1989. Again, the same sort of issue with the previous albums. They're staying modern. They're staying current. And a guy like me who's a pop kid who loved them in the 80s, I'm still going to embrace everything that they're doing only because, they're still very talented. The sound may not be exactly what I want to expect, but it's the sound that the artist wants to create. And so I'm going to accept that 100%. So there you go there. Conquest of You came out in 1997. In 2001, the big swing movement was happening again. And Too Cool to Conga came out, and this allows Kid Creole and the Coconuts to embrace that swing sound. It sounds more organic swing, and lots of really cool, fun songs, including Stingy Brim and a re-recording of Endicott from the In Praise of Older Women album. That's a nice collection that you should definitely check out. If you love swing and if you love old Kid Creole and the Coconuts, that's kind of somewhere in between there. Then it only took another 10 years before the band put out another album called I Wake Up Screaming. Now, this is kind of a mixture between the Kid Creole of old and their sort of 90s trip into R&B and stuff. There's a lot of things, up through the Too Cool to Conga album, you can still hear a heavy Prince influence. You can still hear it a little bit here, even though he only worked on one song, but R&B, like I said, changed when Prince came along. Even long after Prince stopped having hits, his sound and his influence was still permeating the music. But this is a great collection of songs here. The opening track is a great song called Stoney and Corey, which is about his brother Stoney and Corey. Both of them were leaders of the group, Dr. Buzzard's original Savannah band. And so that's a nice song. Some really cool songs on that album. Then it only took another 10 years before the album Nothing Left But the Best came out. And this is something you can buy through the band's website. I don't know if it's commercially available. I haven't seen it anywhere. It's not even listed on Wikipedia, which is sad because it's been out since 2021 and definitely deserves your attention. Now, I think that this album actually came out in France as an August Darnell solo album, but then they reissued it outside of France as a Kid Creole and the Coconuts. It's actually, I think, again, not putting anything down, but it's the best since the heyday. A lot of it is based around acoustic guitars as opposed to, the electric funk guitars or stuff. But there's a lot more fun and a lot more dedication to this, and it's focused on the songs. And you're not thinking about how is this rhythm going to play on modern dance floors, or how is this going to play on modern radio. It's just making music for the love of it, and I think that that's what this is. So, and this, in my opinion, is like the best Kid Creole and the Coconuts album since maybe In Praise of Older Women. But it's really, really good. And that's all that they have released. I could easily cut this video short and end it here, but I have a few more things that I'm going to show you. If you're looking for a collection of the best of what got released in the U.S. on the Sire Records label, you can hit Kid Creole Redux. And this has things from like the Fresh Fruit album, the Wise Guy album, the Doppelganger album, and a few albums after that as well. And that's a great little collection if you want to really hear what the band sounds like. This is a good gateway. Another interesting compilation that I think is a cool gateway is you got the Anthologies Volume 1 and 2. And what they did with here is the guy who used to own Z Records gave the artists back their masters. So what August Darnell did is he went back in the studio. Some of the songs retain the original, bass line, or maybe the original rhythm track, or they strip it down, they remix it, maybe add new vocals. So some of the stuff sounds brand new, recorded in the studio. There's a few new songs on the album, which are great, and it sounds more modern and more current. But like I said, let's say Stool Pigeon, it still has the same bass line from the original recording, the guitar and the drums, but they add, they reshape it and add more onto it. So it's really fun. It's not only just a best of to get you prepared to listen to Kid Creole and the Coconuts, but for fans, it's also a new look into their catalog. And it is 2 CDs, and it's so full of fun that you definitely need to check that out. Another compilation that I want to show you here is Going Places, which is the August Darnell years 1974 to 1983. This is mostly consisting of things that he produced, and it all sounds like August Darnell. He has a distinct musical vision. So you're going to get Dr. Buzzard, you're going to get Kid Creole, you're going to get Christina, you're going to get a lot of different bands that he was producing. I think that stuff may have been on the Z Records label, the original releases for all that kind of stuff. So it's an interesting alternative look into what he was doing at this time. Now, a few other things before I go. There was a period there where he had signed with EMI or EMI America, and there was a Coconuts album that was released. I wish I had that on CD. I didn't even know it came out on CD until it was out of print, but now you can't find it for less than $150, $200. So I don't think I'll be owning that anytime soon. But also at the time, there's an alternate version of Kid Creole and the Coconuts that went under the name Elbow Bones and the Racketeers. And the artwork looks more like, the Dr. Buzzard's original Savannah Band. And this is a version that came out that has bonus tracks. This is really fun. It sounds like classic Kid Creole and the Coconuts. There are some songs that are not sung by August Darnell, some are. So if you're a fan of the group and you don't have Elbow Bones and the Racketeers, you're definitely going to want to get it. I mentioned just a few moments ago about the Coconuts having an album out on EMI, but I do have their next album, which is called Killer Bees. And it's actually called Killer Bees. It's not like a collection of B-sides or whatever. It's just a new album by the Coconuts. Anyway, that is it. I have gone through my Kid Creole and the Coconuts CD collection. There are a lot more compilations out there. I believe there's quite a few live releases out there. So definitely check those out if you love compilations and live albums. And for those of you who have not heard Kid Creole and the Coconuts, I put together a 4-minute medley featuring little tiny samples from 23 Kid Creole and the Coconut songs. So you're not going to get Dr. Buzzard, and you're not going to get any of the side projects. It's just going to focus on Kid Creole and the Coconuts so you can hear them. And I hope you enjoy this, and I'll see you on the other side.
There's something wrong in paradise. Another girl's a rose in my curiosity, and there's not a thing that I can do. And they got love's trapped in her soul, and they got put her on a pedestal, and they got wishes her command, but and they got don't make no demands, and they got well, darling, you can take me, because I'm giving it all away. Darling, you can take me.
Taste this bliss. Don't tell me that you don't yearn for something new.
I couldn't leave her. Baby, baby, you just want me for the sex. Just want me for the sex. The sex of it. The sex of it. Oh! She's the one that they call Contessa. She's a rich little dish, God bless her. She's a party girl. Hey, hey, hey. It's magic that keeps me in your sweet parade. Hey, hey, life is always good. Life is always good. And then drop the roof on the rest, and don't clean up the mess. We need a brand new ship of road, you know. Where I lay my hat is home. Got my facts, got my phone. I'm bi-coastal. Got nobody changing. But the man in the stingy brown. Oh, the man in the stingy brown. That man. Stony, Stony. And Corey, Corey. Oh my God, Ori, oh. He's not a hound, always sniffing around. And he's better than a mule, cause he won't let you down. He's a monkey, a simple monkey. No more looking for Mr. Conversation Piece. Do I have to please everybody?
Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this video about Kid Creole and the Coconuts. Just remember that I appreciate you. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, to ring that bell for future notifications. And until the next time, remember me. I'm Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie.